All right, welcome back to a brand new video of the Targeted Individual Program, Targeted Individual Experience. Again, so today I was the TI Alda called me from California, and I can always tell because she's like when they start targeting her and me at the same time, how heavy her targeting is, because she will text me, all throughout the day, multiple texts over and over again. Then she'll call me, right, and then she'll call me, and then we'll have a conversation, and then they'll turn into, how was Thanksgiving with the family, right? I say, it's fine, I'll have you. So did you guys get together with your family and this and that? And I'm like, okay, why she asked me that question? You know what I'm saying? But it's always hijacking her mind. And once I realized what it is that they were doing, I started pushing back, And there's at one point she whispered, she's like, and I recognized, I was like, okay, yeah, they hijacked our consciousness. And so I just thought, I was like, yeah, they're done. I said, yeah, we are done with them. They've been exposed now, and they're going to be exposed even more. And then they started with the sirens. After saying that, they started using the sirens, right? And it's hilarious, man. Then they start sending these threats. So when I listened to Bob Marley, the song called Zimbabwe, right? And it's like, every man have a right to decide his own destiny. And in this judgment, there is no partiality, right? And then he goes on to say, so arms in arms, we fight this little struggle, because that's the only way we can overcome a bit of trouble. And he goes, brother, you're right. And there's another part, he goes, in every man's chest. And whenever he says that, in every man's chest, he used the car horn, right? You know what I'm saying? They be so hot, right? So, when you stand up to these people, it tells you that they will try to assassinate you, try to strike you down, right? Because the one thing they don't want is for, we talk about COINTELPRO, is the so-called rise of black messiahs. And I say messiahs with an S, right? Because they got you believing that, they got the Negropeans believing that they should be waiting for a messiah, right? But again, remember the word Christ and what it means. It means anointed, right? Back in ancient times, the priests were also known as Christ, right? Because they had the knowledge, right? They had the knowledge, the wisdom, and the understanding. So they were called Christ. So the word Savior, they came out of the Greek, right? And the Ptolemy the First. And he made the Egyptians make him into a god, right? So Ptolemy Satir, right? Or Serapis Satir, right? Which is Serapis the Savior, right? Ptolemy the Savior. So again, understanding history is important, it's key. So they will always engage in these threats of assassination. Like I said, I don't listen. What can I do? I'm not going to live in fear, though. Look, as he drives riding his bike, he's looking that direction and nodding, doing the nod. Like, I don't know you, bro. Why are you nodding at me for? Well, why? All of a sudden now, you start. Why all of a sudden now? That it's okay for me to go home now, right? All the time y'all been trying to prevent me and threaten me whenever I decide to leave and go home. All of a sudden, is that now? Like, come on now. Like I said, the coercive persuasion program and programming is to do what? To confuse you, to give you all these conflicting messages, right? I was watching, who was it? Jordan Maxwell, and he talks about how the church is it Jordan Maxwell or was no, it was one of these. It's a Chinese Canadian professor, or a Canadian professor of Chinese background, and he was talking about why the church don't teach Jesus' teaching. And it's very interesting, his take on things. But I definitely agree on what he's saying. He's like, that the church is actually, the entity that they call Satan. as a collective entity, right? The church is Satan. And again, there's a famous quote by Queen Elizabeth I. You know, she said that in a letter that she wrote to the Pope, calling the Pope Satan, calling the Pope the devil. You know, because of, she said that, you know, the behavior of the Roman Catholic Church, the Vatican, the popes, are all in line with what they talk about what Satan is doing, right? Now I can't remember everything she said verbatim, but it's, you know, the context is the fact that the Catholic Church have been engaging in some of the most evil act and wicked act since its inception. And she's right, you know. I was reminded again in a video I saw of Mother Teresa, right? Many people don't understand how this woman murdered hundreds, if not even thousands of children. We know that her and her organization had kidnapped, removed thousands, tens of thousands of children, native children, from their home, right, and sold them into adoption. So you know, white people will always have us celebrating the people who murder our people, who kidnap our children and us, right? Who engage in mass murdering of our people, and then we hold them up as some sort of hero. They are not our heroes. We need to understand that. You know, I hate when Negropeans talk about, oh, I'm a rogue scholar. You know, listen, I appreciate the fact that you're brilliant, that you study hard, that you're able to, get, high academics marks, but you call yourself a rogue scholar as a black person or any other group of people, but particularly as a black person, it's atrocious. It's a slap in the face of your ancestors that lives within you. Do you understand who Cecil Rhodes was? Do you understand it? And sadly, because we don't know history, like I said, we end up celebrating some of the worst people in history, because white people has hold their people, those people who commit crimes and atrocities against our people, as heroes. And so we adopt their heroes, right? We never look at black people who fought back as our heroes. We don't, like I said, they don't make movies about the Haitian Revolution. You ever see a big budget movie, a Hollywood movie about the Haitian Revolution? No, you will never see that, right? Because what? When they show you movies of Napoleon and calling him the great general, right? When we know through our history that it was black Africans, right? Black enslaved Africans that defeated Napoleon. We know that, right? We know that. We know that there were black enslaved people in America, in the Caribbean, who fought against the British, French, Portuguese colonial masters, right? The German colonial masters, the Danish colonial masters, right? We don't make movies about those people. We don't, right? How isn't that no one has ever made movies about the Moors, the true Moors, the black Moors, right? Not these so-called European Moors that they want to call. Those are not Moors, right? And Moors literally means dark complexion, right? It's like you just like calling someone black, or even the word Swati. Swati means dark complexion, right? When you read who is it? Thomas Jefferson letter, and he talks about how the Germans are Swati people, right? The Russians Swati, right? Meaning that these were people of dark complexions. So what happened? Like you said, we have to study the great whitewashing of people across the world, right? The deliberate effort to whiten the population, or to breed out the darker skinned population to a lighter population. Because for Thomas Jefferson, the only white people of Europe were that of the Anglo-Saxon. right? And the Swedes, right? You know what I'm saying? He talks about Spain being a swarthy nation, right? You know, like in Italy, right? It used to call the Sicilian, you know, the N-words, right? Because what? They were of a swarthy, a dark complexion, right? And so what did they do? The great whitewashing of Italy, right? The breeding out of the black population of Spain. The breeding out of the black. If the Moors ruled Spain for 700 years, right? Of course, they were sleeping with Spanish women. They were having children by them. You know, when you look at Portugal also, right? You look at Argentina, right? The destruction of the native population of Argentina, they're breeding out to where Argentina is the widest nation in South America, right? Same thing with Brazil. Brazil, we used to have, something like 80% of the people in Brazil were black. Now it's down to what, 60%? It is the breeding out of the black population. We tend to not want to understand these things, right? These are a group of people who hate black people so much that they want to get rid of us, right? Because why? Because they know they come from us, and they despise that. Okay, so we have to study in terms of where that idea, you know, that party understand started with, for the most part, Oliver Cromwell, right? In the expulsion of black Europeans, you know, as I said, black people of European descent, right? The theft of their land, the theft of their titles, their surnames, right? Because you know, we think we just had, you know, African names, right? No, some of our ancestors come from Europe. You know, of course, you know, Africans travel across the globe and they settle on every corner on this planet. So, you know, the original people of those inhabited lands were Africans, black Africans, but then they became Europeans. And some of them retained their dark color. Right? Talk about the Vikings. You know, Hollywood show you pictures of white Vikings. They were black Vikings too. It's in their history books, it's in their records. But we've been given a false sense of reality, of history, right? Where they left out the black population. Okay? The idea that they tell us that, you know, enslaved Africans didn't know anything, which is a fallacy, right? We may not have known the English language, some of us, but you remember too, they were, before they enslaved people here in the United States, you had black indentured servants. Came from where? From Europe. Go read the invention of whiteness. Right? Go and read that. The invention of whiteness. And you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Go and read some of these old archaeological books that they talk about the population of Europe when they look at the archaeological records of Europe, and it talks about how, you know, the original inhabitants were black people, and they admitted it. They admitted it in their books. As a matter of fact, there's a few books that I have, okay, that I keep forgetting. And I need to get back to doing videos and stuff like that, but it's pretty hard right now because I can't. I'm still so traumatized by the attack with the remote mountains and the headaches that I used to get. I mean, it was so severe that even now I'm still traumatized by that. I can say it because it's true, right? And you read about Joan of Arc, right? They show you Joan of Arc as a white woman, right? But when you go to the historical records, you go to these historical books that was written about Joan of Arc, it tells you that who she was. She was a black woman, right? Yeah, I'm talking about the greatest deception, right? The two greatest deception by white Europeans and white Arabs. The lies, the white Arabs, in terms of hiding black history, co-opting black Asian culture, Roman Asian culture, Greek Asian culture as theirs, when even to this day they don't even practice it. And I got to talk about, you can go throughout Africa and you can see that they still practice the same belief system, might just be named something different. But if you look at the cultural attire, is that of the Egyptians or Kemetans, right? They'll say, well, that's our history. How is it your history? You're not Greek. You're not the descendants of the Greeks. You're not the descendants of the Romans. You're definitely not. You are the descendants of the Africans, but you don't think yourself as being the descendants of the Africans, right? You think of yourself as a hey. Come on, dude, don't do that. It's that whole idea of sicking the dog on me. Let me tell you, I'll kill that dog. All right, I want you all to understand that I have no affinity for dogs, particularly if you train them to attack people. Okay, I will kill it. But anyhow, here, look. The New York Fecal Department. Oh man, you coming up here? Come on. You gonna turn? Let's see if they're gonna turn. It's a whole bunch of noise they make. That's all. Let me take my book right off my back, cause I'll tell you when I know how they are, because it shouldn't be taking this long for a bus to come. I didn't leave that late. All right, it's I left around 9:30, or 9:30, a little after 9:30, I should say. So it's still early. But yeah, as I said, yeah, and this is the thing that really makes you understand the disdain for black people, that these people will lie. They will lie, and I get into it with them, particularly because they're so racist, right? They are so racist. They'll post these things here. We were Kangs. We were KNG. And I'm like, so I posted pictures of some ugly Arab that look like Arabs that look like, I don't know what. And I don't put no sort of name. I don't call them troglodytes and all that stuff. I just show them that, listen, you have people that look like that within your group, right? But you want to show a image of an indigenous black man, because he may be resembled, an ape or something like that. Well, I tell you what, they got white people that resemble apes. After all, they are a distant cousin of ours. They got 5 fingers, 5 toes. They got a mouth. They got the ears like us. They got eyes, and if you look at the way how the placement of, they got penis just like how we got penis, and where their penis at? You know what I'm saying? They go to when they interact with each other, they have wrists, they have an elbow, they have a knee, right? You know what I'm saying? So we tend to, like, you can see how close we are, and when you think about it, when you look at the DNA between apes and human beings, right? We're talking about, we're just what? Just a very small difference between us that makes us humans and makes them the species that they are. Okay? I don't know if people can understand that. You look at like the what do you call the bonobos apes, right? They're highly intelligent. They are highly intelligent. All right, you could teach them. You could teach them sign language so they understand. Right? They're good at identifying symbols. Right? They're good at critical thought in terms of putting when they put objects, square, circle, triangle, all that stuff there. They can place them in the right. They can identify the shapes. Right? They can identify things that they want. Right? So they may not have the vocal capacity to speak as we do. But it tells you that their mind can understand. Okay? So, but anyhow. But these people, one of the things that I love about, those who, the black scholars who've been going to Kemet, Egypt today, is that they've taken some amazing pictures of what the tombs look like in the state that it was in before they start to change it, start to desecrate what our ancestors created. This is the Arab, because they have no respect, right? It is a money-making opportunity for them, and that's all it is. So when they want to get into this argument with me, I let them know. I said, okay, so for what? So it wasn't until the French came into Egypt and started excavating, and started, and then the British came and finished excavating. And when the Arabs realized that, hey, we can go into these tombs and temples, and we can steal the items, and we can make money off of it. Why do you think these museums have so much? Have thousands of artifacts from Kemet and other places in Africa, right? You don't see no country in Africa, no country in Asia that have tens, probably over millions of artifacts from Europe. You don't see that, right? So I always say, man, listen, you occupy the land, that's fine. But don't try to act as if you try to place yourself in history, because it's something that these so-called European Jews are doing, placing themselves in history where they don't belong. All right? Like I said, we are the most disrespected group of people in the world because of colonization. You know what I'm saying? Because of colonization. Right? And the brutality in which Africans suffered under colonial powers. It was unlike anything they've ever seen. You know what I'm saying? And that's a fact. And they want to tell you that, the Africans didn't know anything. And then you have some dumbass Europeans talking about, we're better off now. Let me tell you something. If Europe had not interfered in Africa, if they had not colonized Africa, we would be in a better position today. And that's the truth. Because I'll tell you what, go and look at who invented most of the inventions during enslavement of African people. It was African people. Right? African people are so brilliant that even after slavery ended, white people still to capitalize you. So when you read in the Bible about, I think it was Isaiah or Jeremiah, and it talks about that God chose you, and you will be a blessing to other people. That's black people. We bless other people because with our talent. They've just colonized our minds. But when you look at the only group of people on this planet which every other group of people have been blessed by, and I say blessed, I mean in terms of their society is built and run by what? By African nations, by Africans, right? The shit that they don't tell you about, right? How they lie about Africa. Africa never invented anything when we invented every damn thing. Right? I was to say everything, but you know what I'm saying. Most things, right? They lie about, look at Jack Daniels, right? Find out that what? It was the slave that invented that whiskey. Most of the tools used in farming, black people had the skills. So they didn't go into Africa, to enslave people who didn't know anything. They went to Africa because they know that black people knew how to work the land. They knew how to cultivate the land. They were blacksmiths. They carried that knowledge, right? When you look at, the slave responsible for the inoculation, right, with smallpox, was an African slave. They couldn't figure out, how to heal smallpox, but an African showed them, right? Look at country music, and again, the word cowboy came from black enslaved Africans, right? Country music comes from black people, right? These are things that white people have stolen. Like I said, these are the people who continue to steal from us and take it as their own, and then try to keep us out of it. I mean, that's the mindset we're dealing with. Like I said, the colonial mindset doesn't change. It's just shifted. What they've done is change our minds, right? They've domesticated us as a people. That's what they've done. They've domesticated us as a people. Right? Look at rap music. Like we invented rap music, but who benefited the most from rap music? It isn't the black artists, right? Look at these content creators. Who's benefiting the most out of these content creators? Right? You look at the people who is really as part of their management and such and such. Right? So listen, I give credit where credit is due. They have the ability to continue to do this to us, and we have not waken up yet. Then hey, doesn't mean that they're superior. It just means that they know how to manipulate us. Okay? Because the people who they cannot manipulate, what do you think they do? What do you think they do? They have to get rid of them. Oh, I guess it's there was a bus that came down. I guess it left already. Oh, the bus is right here. Okay. I was about to say, it's gonna be one of those nights, huh? But yeah, they will never allow us to have control over our creation. Okay, and if we do, they will do everything they can to sabotage it. And even if when they do that and we're still successful, they will come and they'll throw a whole bunch of money at us, and then we'll sell it to them, and then what they'll do, they'll destroy it. Look at Essence. Look at what they do with the Essence. The Essence Festival, Essence Magazine. Why would they buy a black media publishing company? Right? It's to destroy it because they have no interest in maintaining it. It's to destroy black culture. Right? It's to take away black ownership so that we'll own nothing. And too many of us are too short-sighted, right? Without understanding that we need to market to our people in a way in which black people are going to support, and black people do support, but we want that money.